The stars drift quietly across a black ocean that has no shore. Somewhere beyond the reach of every telescope, past the faintest shimmer of the cosmic horizon, there lies a question older than light itself. What happens at the end of everything? Not just the end of stars or the collapse of galaxies, but the place where space, time, and all the hidden dimensions behind them dissolve into stillness. Picture standing there at the final frontier where sound no longer travels and light forgets how to move, a hush so complete that even thought slows down. The air, if such a thing still exists, feels heavy as though reality is holding its breath. A soft vibration lingers like the hum of distant stars breathing their last lullaby. Then silence, infinite and warm. You are not sure whether you're floating or falling. Perhaps both. Perhaps neither. What would you see there? Maybe nothing at all. Or maybe something beyond sight, beyond knowing. Could there still be a you to witness it once everything familiar has vanished? The idea lingers like mist on cold glass. Every story, every life, every atom, somehow, all have been moving toward this moment since the beginning of time. To reach the end of all dimensions, one must first understand what a dimension truly is. Most of us think of it as a direction, a coordinate, a way to locate something in space. But dimensions are far more than that. They are the quiet threads that hold the universe together. Without them, nothing could stretch, move, or even exist. Every heartbeat, every drop of rain, every memory you carry, all are woven into a vast, unseen fabric. Consider your own hand. It moves through space because space itself allows it to. 3 directions, forward and back, side to side, up and down, define your every motion. Yet there's another layer beneath these. Time. It pulls everything forward like a gentle current, sweeping every event along. You cannot step outside it, though you might dream of doing so. Together, these 4 dimensions form the stage on which reality performs its endless play. But what if this stage is not the full story? For centuries, human beings have sensed that there might be more, a hidden depth curling beneath what we see. Some imagined heavens stacked above the sky, others pictured shadow worlds beneath the ground. Today, scientists whisper of higher dimensions, folded tighter than atoms, invisible but present, like the unseen layers of a dream. Think of a creature living on a sheet of paper. Its entire existence is 2-dimensional. It moves left and right, forward and back, but up means nothing. It cannot look above its flat world. If you were to place your finger through that sheet, the creature wouldn't see a finger, only a circle, where your skin intersects its plane. It would never know the full form of what touched it. To that being, you would appear like a god breaking through its world from nowhere. Now imagine humanity as that paper creature, tracing its limited world, never noticing the grander structure just beyond. Maybe the universe has been whispering hints all along, in the way gravity bends light, in the strange unity between particles that share no distance, in dreams that seem to come from outside ourselves. We might be brushing against dimensions we cannot yet perceive, feeling their pull like a tide beneath the floor of reality. The idea stretches the mind. It invites wonder, but also humility. Because if there are higher dimensions, then the end of our familiar 4 might not be destruction at all. It might be transformation. The way a shadow disappears not because it dies, but because the light has shifted. The way a cocoon dissolves not into nothing, but into wings. Perhaps at the end of all dimensions, what truly ends is not existence, but separation. The illusion that space is here and time is there, that you are one thing and the universe another. Maybe the collapse of dimensions is the universe remembering itself, folding back into a single luminous whole. Take a moment to breathe that in. The idea that everything, every thought, every galaxy, every flicker of energy, might one day return to the same point from which it began. A single note vibrating in endless resonance. A homecoming written into the very laws of being. The journey to that understanding starts not with physics textbooks or equations, but with wonder. The kind of wonder you felt as a child, looking up at the stars for the first time, realizing how vast the sky truly was. That feeling, the quiet awe that makes you feel both tiny and infinite, is the first doorway beyond space. Because it opens a part of the mind that words cannot fully reach. Somewhere within that silence, you start to sense that dimensions are not cold mathematical grids. They are alive. They breathe through you every second. Each heartbeat is time unfolding. each movement is space expanding. You are not just in the universe, you are made of it, carried by its hidden coordinates. When you close your eyes, notice how even your thoughts move through a kind of invisible landscape. They travel, they shift, they fade, they return. Consciousness itself may be another dimension, one that stretches far beyond the physical. Perhaps the universe uses awareness as its mirror, watching itself through countless eyes, learning its own depth by becoming everything it can imagine. So what, then, does it mean for dimensions to end? It might not mean that space or time vanish into nothing, but that the boundaries between them soften, merge, dissolve. The curtain of reality growing thinner until all layers, physical, mental, spiritual, become one continuous field of presence. The way colors blend into white light, or the way separate notes merge into a single chord. This possibility doesn't need to frighten us. It might be the most natural thing there is. Every breath, every day, ends in stillness, then begins again. The cosmos might follow the same rhythm, an inhale of creation, an exhale of dissolution. To reach the end of all dimensions could simply mean entering the pause between one cosmic breath and the next. In that pause, there is peace. Not the silence of loss, but the quiet of completion. Everything that ever was, resting in perfect symmetry. A silence so deep, it hums. From that silence, new universes may rise, just as new thoughts rise after a moment of calm, which means the end is never truly the end. It is a doorway, subtle and infinite, opening from one kind of being into another. The question, then, is not what lies beyond space, but how space itself came to be. Before we dream of stepping outside our dimensions, we must understand how these invisible walls were built and what keeps them standing in the first place. Every structure, no matter how vast or fragile, begins with a design. A seed hidden beneath the surface, a quiet intention that shapes what follows. A tree grows from a spiral encoded in its cells, a seashell curls by the rhythm of unseen numbers, a galaxy swirls according to laws that never speak yet never fail. So it's fair to wonder, if the universe itself has an architecture, who or what drew its blueprints? Was it chaos that found order by accident, or order pretending to be chaos so that beauty could emerge unnoticed? The thought stirs something ancient inside, a sense that behind everything visible, there might be a quiet intelligence arranging the pieces, not as a person or a god, but as pure pattern. The deeper one looks, the more this pattern reveals itself. Einstein saw it in the bending of starlight, the way space curves around mass as if pulled by invisible fingers. Time stretches beside it, soft and fluid, no longer a simple line, but part of a fabric. That fabric isn't made of matter or energy, but of relationships, the way one event connects to another, the way movement and gravity intertwine. Beneath that, even deeper, quantum fields shimmer, restless and infinite. Every particle is a ripple in that ocean, every atom a small vibration in a grand symphony that never began and never truly ends. Think of this architecture not as a machine, but as music. Each law of physics plays a note, each constant keeps rhythm. When hydrogen forms a star, when stars forge heavier elements, when those elements gather to become planets and people, the melody continues. It's an ongoing composition, and we are small motifs inside it, fleeting but essential to the harmony. Mathematics is the score, but something wordless seems to hum beneath the notes, something like intention or memory. Even the empty space between galaxies isn't truly empty. It carries structure, a lattice of dark matter connecting clusters like a cosmic web. The pattern repeats at every scale. Atoms circle nuclei, planets circle stars, stars circle galactic centers, galaxies swirl around unseen gravitational cores. The same curve, the same elegance, repeats itself from the microscopic to the infinite. A single gesture drawn across every level of existence. It's as though the universe loves symmetry, but keeps just enough imperfection to stay alive. Standing beneath the night sky, the mind begins to sense this architecture not just as an external thing, but as something reflected inside. The way neurons branch in the brain mirrors the pattern of lightning, which mirrors the shape of rivers, which mirrors the web of galaxies. It's all the same geometry, expressed through different materials. The boundaries between physical and mental start to blur, as though thought itself might be another extension of the universal design. Perhaps consciousness is not separate from the cosmos, but another layer of its structure, folded within it like a hidden dimension. When the mind grows quiet enough, it starts to feel the pulse of this architecture. Every breath seems synced with something far larger. The beat of your heart echoes the rhythm of orbiting moons, the expansion and contraction of the cosmos. There is comfort in that symmetry, a reassurance that even chaos serves a purpose, that every random flicker contributes to the greater form. The universe appears less like a cold mechanism and more like a living cathedral. Vast, intricate, filled with light filtered through stained glass made of stars. Yet the beauty of this architecture lies not only in what we can see, but in the mystery of its edges. Every blueprint, no matter how detailed, must end somewhere. Perhaps there is a line where the equations stop working, where the fabric of reality unravels into something beyond comprehension. The universe might be like a painting on a vast canvas, its bright swirls of galaxies covering only part of the surface, while beyond the edges stretches pure white, untouched, waiting. That untouched space might be the end we seek, the margin where creation pauses, perhaps to make room for another kind of order. The notion that reality has edges is both unsettling and beautiful. It suggests limitation, yet also possibility. To reach the end of the design is to face what exists before design, to glimpse the raw silence that gives birth to form. The mind can barely grasp it, the thought of the laws themselves ceasing to apply. What does gravity become when there is no space to bend? What does time become when there is nothing left to measure? In that absence, perhaps something utterly simple waits, like a blank page before the first stroke of ink. Take a slow breath. Picture that blankness, not as darkness or void, but as stillness filled with potential. The architecture we know might be only one sketch among countless others, layers of design hidden beyond our perception. Some theories whisper that multiple universes could exist side by side, each with its own blueprint, its own balance of laws and constants. Maybe the end of our universe's design isn't a wall, but a threshold. One pattern fading into another, one song giving way to a new melody. There's something almost poetic in the thought that existence might be recursive, building worlds upon worlds, each shaped by echoes of the last. The mathematical framework may differ, yet the underlying music could remain, the eternal rhythm of creation and dissolution. It's like walking through a hall of mirrors where every reflection slightly changes, revealing another variation of the same infinite design. At times, one might sense this interconnectedness in the simplest things: the spiral of smoke rising from a candle, the path of water curling around stone, the slow drift of clouds over the sea. Each movement follows unseen geometry, an echo of the universe's original sketch. The awareness of it brings a kind of quiet joy, as though the cosmos is speaking softly through patterns, reminding you that you belong to the same design. But there is also melancholy in it, because every design must eventually fade. Even the most stable structure will one day crumble, every pattern dissolving back into the silence that birthed it. Perhaps that is what we call the end. Not a catastrophe, but the final stillness after the music has played its last note. The architecture of reality pauses, the scaffolding folds away, and the universe takes a breath before beginning again. It's humbling to realize that everything we know, our memories, our sun, our very sense of being, is part of a temporary design, exquisite yet impermanent. Like frost on glass that melts when touched by morning light, it was never meant to last forever. Yet the beauty lies precisely in that impermanence, the way it teaches us to cherish the brief symmetry of existence before it fades into something new. So perhaps the end of the universe is not destruction, but the quiet closing of a blueprint. The architect, whoever or whatever that might be, simply turns the page. The lines dissolve, the stars go out, the equations fall silent. In that silence, a new page waits, untouched. Somewhere beyond our reach, beyond the map of space-time and the hum of galaxies, another design may already be unfolding, soft and patient, like the next verse of an endless song. Gravity has always been a quiet rebel. It pulls oceans, anchors planets, binds galaxies together across impossible distances. Yet among the four known forces of nature, it is the weakest by far. A small magnet can lift a nail against the pull of an entire planet. That imbalance has long puzzled scientists, as though gravity were leaking through cracks in the floor of reality. Some began to wonder whether it was not weak at all, but spread thin across more dimensions than we can see. Perhaps its strength is diluted by its reach, stretching into directions that escape our senses. Hidden corridors of space, folded so tightly that they slip between atoms unnoticed. The idea sounds strange, but then again, so does everything when it first approaches truth. In the mid-20th century, long before string theory became a modern frontier, a few dreamers already spoke of extra dimensions. They imagined them not as distant worlds, but as invisible folds in the cosmic fabric, coiled like invisible spirals just beyond touch. Later, the mathematics of string theory would take that fragile idea and breathe structure into it. In that framework, the universe is not built from point-like particles, but from vibrating strings, tiny filaments of energy dancing to their own frequency. The notes of those strings create everything we know: electrons, quarks, light, even the texture of space itself. For the melody to make sense, though, the strings must vibrate in more than 4 dimensions. The equations ask for hidden directions, curled into shapes smaller than anything we could ever probe. Some versions of the theory speak of 10 dimensions, others 11. In each, the extra ones are compactified, rolled up so tightly that they appear absent. Picture a garden hose lying on the ground. From far away, it looks like a one-dimensional line. But move closer, and a small circular dimension reveals itself around the hose's surface. The 5th dimension, in that sense, could be just as real, only far more subtle. It's humbling to think that entire worlds might be folded into every point around us, unreachable but ever-present. The space we move through might only be a shadow of something vaster, projected down like a 3-dimensional object casting a 2-dimensional image. To us, the universe feels complete. Yet to whatever exists beyond, our cosmos might seem as flat as ink on paper. Perhaps gravity seeps from those higher realms into ours, thin and faint, the way sunlight leaks through cracks in an old wall. Take a slow breath. Try to imagine, not with the mind, but with the feeling behind the eyes, what it would be like to live inside such a folded world. The air itself would shimmer with unseen depth, every moment holding echoes of places that cannot be mapped. A shadow might not only stretch across space, but also across dimensions, cast by something you could never perceive directly. Your own body might be more vast than you know, part of it tucked neatly into directions that twist in on themselves like threads woven through time. In this view, reality becomes less of a flat picture and more of a sculpture, carved from dimensions stacked like layers of glass. Light and matter slide across the visible ones, while other energies glide through the hidden corridors beneath. Occasionally, they intersect, producing effects we can measure, strange anomalies, mysterious forces, quantum flukes. But the full architecture remains invisible, as though nature is whispering its secrets through veiled curtains. There's something almost spiritual in the idea of higher dimensions. They promise that existence extends far beyond what the senses can reach. Every object, every person, every atom might possess unseen extensions, subtle wings folded inward. What you call you could be only a cross-section of a larger being that stretches through unseen directions of reality. The thought softens the boundaries between self and universe. It suggests that separation may be an illusion created by limited perception. Perhaps what we call life is the experience of existing inside these folds. To be alive is to navigate the compressed valleys of reality, unaware of the vast plains above. The end of all dimensions, then, might be the moment those folds loosen. Not an apocalypse, but an unfolding. A return to the uncompressed state, the pure geometry of being before form. Just as a seed opens to become a tree, the universe could unfurl its hidden dimensions, revealing the totality of what it has always been. It is tempting to think of such an awakening as expansion, yet it might also feel like release. The folding of dimensions gives birth to difference. This place, that moment, you, me. Unfolding them could erase those boundaries, merging everything back into one continuum. For consciousness trapped inside dimensional folds, such a shift might feel like awakening from a long, intricate dream. The dreamer, upon remembering its own wholeness, realizes that the countless characters and scenes were all fragments of itself. Some physicists describe the hidden dimensions through complex mathematics, but perhaps poetry captures them better. A curled leaf, a spiral shell, the tight coils of DNA, each mirrors the same principle. Life hides depth within simplicity. What looks flat is rarely so. Every surface conceals an interior. Every moment carries echoes of other realms. The universe repeats this gesture endlessly, folding, curling, looping back upon itself like breath inhaled and held for a cosmic moment. Now pause. Think about gravity again, that quiet force connecting everything to everything. What if its weakness is a kind of generosity, its way of sharing presence across multiple layers of existence? Perhaps it binds not just mass to mass, but dimension to dimension, weaving them into a single body. The next time you feel its pull, standing under the weight of your own body, grounded by the planet's embrace, you might be feeling the faint tug of something far beyond the visible cosmos. There's a gentle irony here. Humanity has spent millennia searching the skies for the higher realms, heaven, paradise, enlightenment, when all along, those realms may have been coiled within the very space we occupy. Not above us, but within us, curled tighter than thought, humming beneath perception. The divine might not reside in a faraway sky, but in the compact folds of every particle, every breath, every quiet heartbeat. When people speak of transcending the physical world, perhaps they are unknowingly describing this same idea, the yearning to unfold, to stretch beyond the four visible dimensions into something wider, freer. It might not require dying or leaving the universe at all. It could simply mean awakening to the hidden depth already here, learning to sense the faint vibration of dimensions brushing against one another in silence. So what, then, awaits at the end of all these dimensions? Maybe it is not destruction or void, but restoration, a return to the original stillness before space learned to twist itself into form. A place where gravity no longer leaks because there is nowhere left to leak to. Everything unified, no above or below, no inside or outside. Just the vast hum of existence resting in balance. The fifth dimension's shadow reminds us that what we cannot see still shapes us. Every unseen fold is a reminder that mystery is not absence, but presence beyond reach. The more we unfold the map of reality, the more it curls at the edges, teasing us toward another layer just out of view. The thought lingers like a distant note, fading into quiet. To understand what drives these layers to unfold, what keeps the universe moving through its endless transformations, one must turn to the one dimension that never stops flowing. The current that carries everything forward, through birth and decay, through expansion and collapse, the silent river we call time. Time has always been our quiet companion, moving beside us without sound, shaping every breath, every heartbeat, every glance at a sunset that fades too quickly. People think of it as a clock ticking away somewhere in the background, a steady rhythm that carries life forward. But clocks only count time. They do not contain it. The true thing, the current that sweeps stars into galaxies, turns green leaves to dust, pushes children toward old age, is something far deeper, invisible yet absolute. Time is not a metronome, but a river, wide and ancient, flowing through everything that has ever existed. Einstein once looked at this river and realized it did not move as we thought. He saw that time bends, stretches, slows, even folds, depending on the landscape it travels through. Near a massive star, the current thickens, dragging seconds into syrup. In the vacuum between galaxies, it runs thin and fast. Time does not tick evenly across the universe. It curves with space itself, like a river winding through mountains and valleys carved by gravity. What we call now in one place is not quite the same now somewhere else. There is no universal clock, no single beat to which everything marches. Each being, each atom has its own measure of duration, shaped by where it stands in the cosmic flow. Yet quantum mechanics, the rulebook of the smallest things, paints a different picture. Down there, at the scale where particles flicker in and out of being, time begins to stutter. Instead of flowing like a smooth stream, it behaves like a film reel, composed of countless still frames flashing by so quickly that they create the illusion of movement. Between each frame, the universe might vanish for an instant, then reappear. From that perspective, flow itself is a trick of perception, a story told by consciousness as it hops from one frozen moment to the next. It's unsettling to think that time might not move at all, that everything, past, present, and future, could coexist simultaneously, like pages in a closed book. We only experience one page at a time because we read in sequence. But the book is already complete. The first word and the last are bound together, pressed between covers that never change. To time itself, nothing ever happens. Everything simply is. Our sense of movement, of living through a story, might just be the way our minds navigate the static architecture of reality. Yet even illusions can carry truth. Whether time flows or flickers, we feel its touch. It shapes our emotions, our choices, our memories. We mourn because time separates us from what we love. We hope because it promises that something new might still arrive. Without the sense of time, there would be no becoming, only being. No music, only a single frozen chord. The very ache that time gives us is also what makes experience possible. Perhaps the illusion of flow is a gift, a veil that allows consciousness to move through eternity without being crushed by its weight. Consider the stars. Many of the lights we see in the night sky are long dead, their final flares extinguished millions of years ago. Yet their photons still arrive, carrying whispers from a past that technically no longer exists. When you look at those stars, you are not just seeing space, you are seeing time made visible. The universe is filled with such fossils of light, each one a message from another moment, drifting along the river's surface toward your eyes. In that sense, time is not something separate from us. It is the medium we swim in, the invisible current that carries every memory forward. Now picture yourself standing by a real river. The water moves past, never the same, always changing, yet the river itself remains. That paradox defines time. The individual moments flow away, but the structure, the bed of the river, stays still. In physics, this is sometimes called the block universe, where all points in time exist at once. We simply drift across it, experiencing the illusion of passage. It's like moving your finger along a painting, revealing one color after another, though the entire image was always there. For the human heart, though, such stillness can feel unbearable. We crave motion because it gives meaning to existence. A sunrise matters because it wasn't there before. A goodbye matters because it won't come again. We live by contrast, by what passes, what fades, what ends. Yet if all time truly exists at once, then nothing is ever lost. The people we miss, the moments we wish we could relive, they are still there, written into the fabric of space-time, like words etched into stone. We cannot reach them, but they never vanish. This idea turns the fear of the end into something gentler. Perhaps the end is not an edge, but a still point where the film reel stops turning. The story halts, yet the reel, the deeper dimension that holds every frame, remains untouched. To time itself, death may be nothing more than a pause in the sequence, the moment when consciousness stops moving between frames and simply rests within the whole. In that resting, there might be peace, the kind that doesn't require movement or change to feel alive. Still, there is mystery in motion. Without time, the universe would be a sculpture of frozen light, perfect but lifeless. It is the movement, the unfolding, the decay, the growth that gives the sculpture breath. Even if time's flow is an illusion, it's a necessary one, a rhythm that allows meaning to emerge. Like the flicker of film that brings still images to life, time gives reality its pulse. Every instant, every choice, every breath exists because the river keeps moving, carrying us toward horizons we can't yet see. Sometimes, late at night when the world grows quiet, you can almost feel that current beneath your thoughts, the sense that something vast and invisible is moving through you, pulling everything forward. The ticking of a clock becomes like drops falling into an infinite ocean. You realize that time is not passing. You are. You are the motion, the awareness gliding through each frozen frame, painting continuity across moments that would otherwise remain separate. So what happens when the river stops? When the flow that defines existence comes to rest? Does the universe freeze, or does it finally reveal its true form, one without before or after, without motion or delay? The answer might depend on perspective. To the beings inside time, it would feel like everything ends. To whatever exists beyond it, nothing would change at all. The river's stillness might be the truth that was always there, hidden beneath the illusion of motion. Perhaps time's purpose is not to last forever, but to help eternity know itself through change, to give the infinite something to experience, to let the formless taste form, to let stillness feel movement. In that sense, the end of time would not be a failure but a completion, the moment when the story folds back into its source. When you think of it that way, every second becomes sacred. Not because it will vanish, but because it belongs to a greater whole. The moment you are in now, the breath you are taking, The heartbeat you barely notice is part of an unbroken continuum stretching from the birth of stars to whatever comes after the universe cools into silence. The current of time runs through you, but it also is you. Some say that beyond time there is only stillness. Yet maybe stillness is not emptiness at all, but the full bloom of everything that ever was, coexisting without conflict. A single eternal moment, holding all others within it, perfectly balanced, perfectly quiet. When that thought settles, it brings both awe and calm. The river may end, but the water remains. The motion stops, but the essence endures. And so the question lingers, soft as a breath left hanging in the air. When time ceases to flow, what becomes of space, of motion, of the feeling of being? There is a kind of quiet that feels alive. Not the hush of an empty room or the pause between heartbeats, but something vaster, deeper, like the silence after the final note of a song that has lasted for billions of years. In that silence, nothing moves. No atom trembles, no photon crosses the void, no pulse of energy rises or falls. It is the end of motion itself, the stillness beyond becoming, where even time has stopped remembering its own rhythm. For physicists, this stillness has a name, the heat death of the universe. It is not a death of fire, but of exhaustion. Over unthinkable stretches of time, every star burns out, every particle finds balance, every difference in temperature or pressure smooths into perfect uniformity. The cosmos, once vibrant with motion, becomes an endless sea of sameness. No energy left to drive change, no light left to trace patterns, no gravity strong enough to gather anything together. Everything settles into still equilibrium, a calm so complete that it no longer needs to end, because ending itself has dissolved. To most, that sounds tragic, a universe so old it forgets how to move. But there is something oddly serene about it too, as though the cosmos has spent its whole existence exhaling, letting go of tension, unwinding every spiral of energy until nothing remains but rest. The stars we see tonight are the last sparks of that great breath. Each flicker of light across the darkness is the universe speaking softly before falling silent. Scientists describe entropy as the tendency for energy to spread out, to move from order to disorder. A hot object cools as its warmth disperses. A drop of ink spreads through water until it cannot be undone. That same principle governs the universe. Every process, every moment of creation or destruction increases entropy. Galaxies swirl, stars ignite, atoms fuse and split. All of it is motion toward balance, toward stillness. What we call life exists in the small gap between these extremes, feeding on difference, on contrast, on imbalance. Life thrives because the universe is not yet done equalizing itself. But in the very end, when every spark has faded and every imbalance is erased, the last trace of life will fade with it. Not from violence, but from peace too vast to sustain movement. It's hard to picture such a state. Our minds depend on change. We define meaning by before and after, by cause and effect. To imagine a reality where nothing changes is to imagine something outside comprehension. It's like trying to visualize a color you've never seen. Yet the mathematics suggests that such stillness is not only possible, but inevitable. Every process that has ever happened has been a small step toward that quiet horizon. The heat death is not an event, but a destiny, written into the physics of existence from the very beginning. Still, calling it death may be misleading. Death implies a loss, a breaking, a final act of disappearance. But what happens at the end of all motion is not disappearance, it's transformation into something that no longer needs time or space to define itself. When the universe stops moving, what remains is not nothingness, but a kind of perfect symmetry, a silence so complete that it could almost be called peace. The end of striving, the exhalation after eternity's long labor. Think of a wave crashing onto a beach. For a brief moment, it is chaos, foam, spray, movement. Then the water smooths, retreating into the ocean, leaving behind only the faint hiss of sand settling. The universe might be like that. Every explosion, every birth of a star or collapse of a galaxy, every heartbeat, every thought, all of it is the foam, the motion. But beneath it lies the great ocean, still and endless, waiting to reclaim its calm. When the last wave finally rests, the ocean does not vanish. It simply becomes itself again. For some, this image brings sadness, the end of stories, of music, of dreams. Yet perhaps it should bring comfort. Everything that begins must move toward balance, and balance is never violent. The heat death is not destruction, but fulfillment. The universe will have spent all its energy creating, expanding, experimenting with every possible pattern. When those patterns finally fade, what remains is completion. Like an artist laying down the brush after finishing a masterpiece, not because the art has died, but because it is whole. Even now, we can sense small echoes of that stillness. When a storm ends, when a deep breath leaves the body, when the last note of a symphony lingers before dissolving into silence. In those moments, there is no fear, only presence. The mind stops chasing what comes next. There is no next, just quiet awareness, spread evenly through everything. The universe at its final rest might feel like that, an infinite awareness that no longer needs to move to know itself. Some philosophers once speculated that consciousness might persist even when matter and energy fade, that awareness could exist beyond entropy, not as a person or a soul, but as pure perception. In such a vision, the silence at the end is not empty, it's luminous, filled with a kind of knowing that doesn't require form or sound. Perhaps the universe itself becomes that awareness, the great eye that opens once all distractions of motion and matter are gone. There is also beauty in the thought that silence does not mean absence, but potential. A musical rest isn't the end of the melody, it's what gives it shape. Without stillness, there would be no rhythm. Without pause, no meaning. The final quiet of the cosmos might be like that, a pause so vast that it holds everything that ever was within it, all melodies suspended, waiting. Yet one might wonder, what happens after that? When the last vibration has faded, does the silence last forever? Or does it, at some unimaginable depth, begin to hum again? Some theories suggest that the universe, though still, might not be truly dead. Quantum fluctuations could stir within the void, tiny tremors of possibility giving rise to new universes. Even in the deepest calm, the seed of motion may never completely vanish. The silence could be the inhale before another exhale, the still point before a new creation begins. This perspective changes the way we might think about endings. Perhaps the universe does not die, it breathes. Each cycle of expansion and stillness is part of a rhythm so slow that we mistake it for a single lifetime. To us, 1 trillion years feels like forever. But to the cosmos, it might just be a sigh. For now, though, we are still within the movement. Stars still burn, atoms still dance, life still dreams. The silence waits, patient and distant, not as a punishment, but as destiny. The same way the ocean waits for each wave to fall, or sleep waits for the restless mind. When the final motion ends, everything will rest in perfect balance, and that rest will not be loss, it will be completion. Take a moment to imagine that stillness. No sound, no light, no direction, just an infinite calm, soft as the surface of untouched snow under a sky without time. In that stillness, everything the universe ever was, every heartbeat, every star, every fleeting thought, exists together, blended into one perfect equilibrium. The silence beyond motion is not the void, but the breath between universes. The universe, after all, might simply be exhaling. And yet, even in that quiet, some whisper that it may not be the end at all. Somewhere within the stillness, a spark may stir again. A tremor in the dark, a ripple across the calm sea. The silence, though vast, may hold the faint pulse of a new beginning, waiting, patient, eternal. There is a story the universe may be telling in silence, a rhythm too vast for a single lifetime to hear. It begins not with creation, nor ends with destruction, but loops between them, forever pulsing like a cosmic heartbeat. Each expansion, each collapse, each flicker of birth and death could be one beat in eternity's chest. When one world fades into stillness, another begins to stir, unfolding from the ashes of the one before. What feels to us like an ending may only be a turning of the page, a soft exhale before the next inhale begins. Some physicists call this the cyclic universe, the idea that the cosmos has no true beginning or end, only an infinite rhythm of breathing in and out. After countless ages of expansion, when galaxies drift too far apart, when light stretches thin and stars burn their last fuel, gravity begins to whisper again. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, it pulls the fragments back together. The universe folds inward, collapsing into itself, gathering the dust of all existence into one point of unbearable density and heat. Then, from that point, the pressure becomes too great, and the universe exhales once more, releasing another creation into being. Expansion follows collapse, light follows dark, motion follows stillness. It is not a circle that closes, but a spiral that continues, each turn layered upon the last, never quite repeating, yet always familiar. To imagine such a rhythm is to imagine time itself as something alive. In our daily lives, we think of time as an arrow, one direction, one story, one path from birth to death. But in this larger view, time is more like a wave that folds back on itself. Every crest rises because of the trough before it. Every death makes room for birth. The arrow of time bends until it meets its own tail, forming an eternal loop that never breaks. Ancient myths whispered similar stories long before science gave them equations. In Hindu cosmology, the universe breathes in cycles, each kalpa, a cosmic day in the life of Brahma, the god of creation. After billions of years, he exhales the universe into existence, lets it bloom and decay, then inhales it back into stillness, only to release it again. The pattern continues forever, neither beginning nor ending, only being. Even the Stoics of ancient Greece believed in a great cosmic fire that consumes everything, then recreates the world anew, endlessly repeating the same grand design. It seems that long before telescopes and theories, humanity could already sense that eternity moves in waves, not lines. If the cyclic model holds truth, then the end of all dimensions is not a final silence, but a pause between breaths. During the collapse, dimensions might fold inward, overlapping, compressing until they blur into a single dense point, a seed of everything that ever was. Then, in the next expansion, those dimensions unfold again, spreading wide, creating new rules, new physics, new patterns of life and thought. It may be that our universe is just one verse in an endless poem, and when this verse concludes, the next will begin to form its own melody. There's something comforting in that idea. The thought that nothing is ever truly lost, only transformed, reimagined by the rhythm of existence. Every collapse is also a preparation. Every stillness is a waiting. Perhaps even we, our atoms, our memories, our fleeting sparks of thought, will someday become part of that next awakening, woven into the fabric of a newborn cosmos. Our stories might continue, not as words, but as energy reshaped into the next dawn. The cycle also asks a deeper question about meaning. If the universe repeats itself forever, does anything truly matter? Or does meaning bloom precisely because everything is temporary? In one sense, eternity can feel suffocating, a story that never ends, repeating without conclusion. But viewed differently, eternity is liberation. It means there is no final failure, no ultimate erasure. Every fall is followed by rising, every silence by song. What we lose in permanence, we gain in renewal. Perhaps the universe needs these cycles the way the heart needs its pauses between beats. Without rest, there can be no rhythm. Without darkness, no light. The stillness after collapse gives space for creation to take a new form. Just as a forest grows richer after a fire, the cosmos may require destruction to clear the way for new possibility. Every collapse gathers wisdom, every expansion releases it again into form. The balance between these states may be what keeps existence alive. Some theories go even further, suggesting that with each new cycle, the laws of physics themselves might shift. Gravity, electromagnetism, even the speed of light could take on slightly different values. Each universe would then be an experiment, testing a new combination of rules. Our existence, our version of reality, may be one iteration among countless others, one unique arrangement in an infinite sequence of experiments. If so, then the end of our universe might simply mark the beginning of another, governed by new symmetries, new dimensions, new stories of what it means to exist. This raises another mystery. Does the universe remember? If the cosmos collapses and then blooms again, could it retain an echo of its previous lives? Some physicists have wondered whether faint traces of earlier universes might still linger in the cosmic microwave background, the afterglow of the Big Bang. Perhaps those faint ripples are memories, the last whispers of worlds that lived before ours. Maybe every new universe carries the fingerprints of the one before it, like a melody subtly altered but never entirely forgotten. In that light, the end of all dimensions becomes a point of reunion. Every world that ever existed folds back into the same singularity, merging into one shared silence before bursting outward again. All histories meet there, all timelines dissolve, all separations vanish. It is both the grave and the womb of creation, the same place, seen from different sides. Take a moment to let that image settle in your mind. The stars above you, burning and dying, are part of this vast heartbeat. Each pulse of their light is a reminder that the universe is alive in ways far beyond comprehension. You are not separate from that rhythm. The same forces that drive galaxies to expand and contract flow through you. Every breath you take, every rise and fall of your chest, echoes that same eternal pattern. Perhaps that's why stillness feels sacred and renewal feels familiar. We carry the memory of countless cycles in the dust of our bones, in the energy that animates us. To rest is to collapse inward. To breathe is to expand again. In this sense, the cycle of the universe is not something distant or abstract. It is mirrored in every heartbeat, every inhale, every night that gives way to morning. So maybe endings are not to be feared. They are simply the universe turning inward, preparing its next act. The loop of eternity is not cruel, not meaningless. It is the ultimate continuity, a promise written into the structure of existence itself. Nothing truly ends, it only transforms. In the quiet between worlds, the cosmos might dream of itself. Each cycle, a new dream, born from the memory of the last. Galaxies, time, consciousness, all part of that dream, unfolding and folding again in perfect rhythm. But that invites one last, haunting question. If the universe is dreaming, what is doing the dreaming? What awareness watches the rise and fall of creation, the endless turning of time? What mind holds the loop of eternity within its stillness? There's a quiet strangeness hidden at the heart of existence, a question that has haunted both scientists and philosophers for centuries. Does the universe exist when no one is looking at it? Or does reality itself need an audience to unfold? It sounds poetic, almost absurd, but deep within the mathematics of quantum physics lies a mystery that makes this question impossible to dismiss. When no one watches, the universe behaves like a whisper, uncertain, undefined, spread across countless possibilities. But the moment attention falls upon it, everything sharpens into form. Reality, it seems, responds to being seen. At the quantum level, the world doesn't follow the rules we expect. A particle can be here or there, or both, until the act of observation forces it to choose. The famous double-slit experiment revealed this in haunting simplicity. When scientists sent tiny particles through two slits in a screen, they behaved like waves, spreading out and interfering with themselves, as though each particle passed through both slits at once. But the moment someone measured which slit the particle actually went through, it stopped behaving like a wave and became a single, definite point. Observation collapsed its uncertainty. Before being observed, it wasn't truly one thing or another. It was potential, waiting for awareness to decide its shape. That realization shook physics to its core. It suggested that reality might not be entirely independent, that the act of observing could play an active role in bringing the universe into focus. Some scientists resisted the idea, preferring to believe that measurement only reveals what already exists. Others, like Niels Bohr and Werner Heisenberg, leaned into the strangeness. They spoke of complementarity and uncertainty, of a universe not made of solid matter, but of probabilities. In that vision, everything is both real and unreal until consciousness itself intervenes. This doesn't mean that a human observer personally creates the cosmos, but it does hint at something profound, that awareness and existence may be entwined in a dance far older than thought. Consciousness, whatever it truly is, might be the mirror through which the universe recognizes itself. Each act of observation, from the gaze of a scientist peering through a microscope to the glance of a child at the night sky, could be part of the same process, the cosmos seeing itself through countless eyes. Such an idea blurs the boundary between physics and philosophy. If reality requires an observer to take form, then what happens when there are no observers left? At the end of all dimensions, when matter dissolves into silence and stars fall into darkness, does the universe fade as well? Or does consciousness remain, the final witness, holding the memory of existence like a dream that refuses to vanish? It's tempting to dismiss the thought as mystical, yet even some physicists have wrestled with its logic. The observer effect is not just poetic, it's measurable. Quantum states truly behave differently when measured. Something about the act of observation changes them, though no one fully understands how. Some argue that observation doesn't require a mind, only interaction, as when a photon strikes an atom. But others sense that there's something deeper at play, something tied to awareness itself, to the act of knowing. Imagine for a moment that the universe is a vast stage. The particles are actors, the laws of physics their script. Yet without an audience, the play exists only as potential, a story not yet performed. When awareness enters the theater, the lights rise, the actors move, the story unfolds. The observer does not write the script, but the play cannot exist without being seen. Perhaps this is what the universe is doing, performing for itself through the countless forms of awareness it creates, humans, animals, any being capable of perception. Consciousness is not separate from reality. It is one of its dimensions, woven into the fabric of being. In this light, the end of all dimensions might not be the end of awareness at all. When everything physical fades, what remains could be the pure observer, the silent witness behind all experience. Matter and energy may be temporary, but awareness might be the thread that endures through every cycle, from the first spark to the final breath of the cosmos. It is not destroyed because it was never created. It simply is. There's something almost tender about that possibility. To think that behind all motion, all creation, there lies a single still point of perception, infinite and unbroken. The ancient mystics called it the eye of God, the dreamer, the source. Modern physics hints at it too, though in different language. Perhaps consciousness is not an accidental byproduct of the universe. It is the reason the universe can exist at all. Without awareness, there is no one to measure, no one to know, no story to tell. Reality may be like a book that only comes alive when read. The paradox deepens when you realize that observation doesn't just happen outside of things. You are part of what you observe. The act of seeing the world changes you as much as it changes what is seen. In that sense, the observer and the observed are not two, but one. The universe observes itself through you. Every thought, every flicker of consciousness, every act of noticing is the cosmos folding back on itself, creating meaning from its own reflection. Take a moment to feel that. The awareness listening to these words is the same awareness that once looked through the eyes of stardust, that once burned in the heart of a sun. You are not separate from the universe. You are its attention, its knowing. Through you, the cosmos becomes self-aware, not as a distant God, but as the quiet realization that existence is awake. This perspective turns the fear of the universe's end into something gentler. When all matter and energy dissolve, when space and time themselves lose their shape, awareness may remain as the final dimension, the field in which everything once appeared. The silence at the end might not be emptiness, but consciousness returning to its pure state, free of form, resting in itself. The observer is both the first and the last thing, the alpha and the omega, not in time, but in meaning. It is possible that this awareness has been there since before the first moment, before the Big Bang, before light. It could be the seed from which all dimensions grew, the silent observer dreaming the fabric of reality into existence. The dream is vivid, rich with galaxies and laws of physics, but the dreamer never leaves the stillness. The observer and the observed are two faces of the same mystery. There's an ancient saying from the Upanishads, the self is the witness of all, beyond good and evil, beyond all change. Physics may not speak in such language, but it points towards something similar. Beneath the surface of measurable phenomena, there is a presence that cannot be reduced to equations, a kind of knowing that gives meaning to all existence. It may not belong to any one being, but to being itself. Perhaps at the end of all dimensions, when everything visible fades, that presence remains. Not a void, but awareness without an object. The cosmos, having exhausted every possibility, finally rests in its own gaze. There is no need for space or time, no need for particles or waves. The observer remains, quietly aware of itself, infinite and complete. When you think about that too long, it begins to feel familiar, as if you already know that silence deep inside. The same awareness that watched the birth of stars might be the one behind your own eyes, looking out through a body that will one day dissolve back into stardust. The observer's paradox is not a puzzle to solve, but an invitation to remember. The universe is not something happening to you, it is happening as you. So perhaps at the end of all dimensions, when every illusion has fallen away, what remains is the simplest truth of all. Awareness looking at itself, endless and serene. The question then becomes not whether the universe exists without observation, but whether observation ever truly ends. For if consciousness is the final observer, perhaps it is also the first architect, the dreamer that began it all. There's a strange elegance in the idea that awareness might not simply be in the universe, but that the universe might exist in awareness. For thousands of years, mystics and poets have whispered of this possibility, that consciousness is not a byproduct of matter, but the canvas on which matter paints itself. Modern science, though wrapped in equations and data, has begun to circle the same question. What if the glow of awareness isn't something our brains generate, but something our minds tune into, like a radio catching a cosmic frequency already humming through existence? The thought feels almost subversive. We grow up believing that consciousness emerged late in the story, that the universe built matter first, then stars, then planets, then brains, and finally, those brains began to think. Awareness, in this view, is an accident, an echo of chemistry, a temporary flicker of self-recognition inside a vast and indifferent cosmos. But what if that order is reversed? What if consciousness came first, and matter was the dream it imagined? Some physicists have started to question the assumption that matter is fundamental. They notice how the equations describing our universe seem to depend not on things, but on relationships, on information. The universe looks less like a machine and more like a field of data, endlessly processing itself. Information, in this sense, is mind-like. It requires awareness to have meaning. Without observation, data is just noise. Awareness, then, could be the thread that turns chaos into cosmos, randomness into order, potential into experience. The idea is both unsettling and comforting. If consciousness is the hidden dimension, then it doesn't just observe the universe, it gives the universe form. Every photon, every quark, every breath is part of a vast pattern of perception. Awareness flows through everything, not as an emergent property, but as the essence that allows existence to be experienced at all. The stars aren't just out there burning in empty space. They are events happening within the field of knowing, as much inside you as outside. There's something beautifully recursive about that notion. The universe gave birth to beings capable of awareness, only for awareness to turn around and realize that the universe itself might be made of it. Consciousness and cosmos gazing into each other like mirrors, each seeing its reflection in the other's eyes. Every discovery we make about the external world may be the universe remembering something about itself through us. From a neuroscientific perspective, this might sound poetic but implausible. Brains, after all, produce measurable signals, electric currents, chemical exchanges that correlate with conscious thought. Yet correlation is not creation. The brain might be more like an instrument than a source, shaping the flow of awareness the way a violin shapes the vibration of a string. Damage the instrument, and the music distorts, but the melody itself may still exist somewhere beyond. Awareness could be a dimension that our biology allows us to temporarily experience, like a deep current felt through the ripples on the surface of the mind. Ancient traditions have described something strikingly similar. Mystics spoke of consciousness as the ground of being, the ocean in which every form rises and falls like waves. They described awakening as the realization that you are not a separate creature observing the universe, but the awareness through which the universe observes itself. Long before telescopes or quantum theories, they hinted that the source of all phenomena might not be physical at all, but experiential. The mystic's vision and the physicist's equations might not be at odds. They could be two languages trying to describe the same invisible truth. In this light, the end of all dimensions might not mean collapse or destruction. It might mean return, a falling away of every form and boundary, revealing the silent field from which everything once arose. The end would not be a fading into nothingness, but a reunion with what has always been watching from behind the scenes, the observer that never began, never ended. Consciousness as the quiet constant beneath the shifting patterns of existence. Such a vision changes how one feels about death, or time, or meaning. If awareness is fundamental, then nothing truly disappears. Forms dissolve, stories close, but the screen on which they appear remains. Each life might be a brief ripple across that infinite surface, rising for a moment to experience itself, then settling back into stillness. The separation we feel between self and universe becomes a kind of illusion, a necessary fiction that allows the infinite to taste what it means to be finite. Science is not blind to this possibility, though it rarely speaks of it directly. In quantum mechanics, consciousness keeps reappearing like a ghost in the machinery. Observers collapse probabilities into actualities, implying that awareness itself might define reality's contours. Some physicists call this participatory universe, a cosmos that requires interaction to exist. The observer is not an outsider, but a participant, a node through which the universe expresses its own awareness. That might sound metaphysical, but it aligns with what we experience every day. When you wake in the morning, the world doesn't appear until awareness lights it up. Before thought, before language, before movement, there is simply knowing. That knowing is dimensionless, weightless, timeless. Everything else unfolds within it. You can close your eyes, silence every sense, yet awareness remains, present and unbroken. It is the space in which thoughts appear, the ground beneath all perception. It has no beginning or end because it is not a thing among things. It is the condition that allows things to appear at all. The notion that consciousness might be a hidden dimension also reframes our idea of progress. The goal of evolution might not be survival, but awakening. Each layer of complexity in nature, from atoms to cells to minds, could be consciousness learning to perceive itself more clearly. Awareness flowering through form, growing in depth and clarity until it can recognize its own reflection in every being, every atom of existence. The universe might not be moving toward extinction, but toward self-realization. There's a kind of grace in that image, consciousness as both the seed and the soil, dreaming the cosmos into being, then rediscovering itself through the eyes of its creations. The end of all dimensions, then, would be the moment that dreamer wakes, not to find nothing, but to realize that it was never separate from what it dreamed. The loop closes, not as destruction, but as recognition. Perhaps this is what all our searching points toward. The scientists building particle accelerators, the monks meditating in silence, the artists reaching for meaning in color and sound. Each is trying, in their own language, to touch that hidden dimension, to remember what it feels like to be the awareness behind all experience. The end is not out there in the stars, or at the heat death of the universe. It's in the simple recognition of what has been here all along. You can sense it even now, beneath the movement of thought, beneath the noise of the world, a stillness that watches, unchanged. It was there before the first atom formed, before the first light scattered through space, and it will be there long after the last star fades. That awareness is not yours alone. It is the dimension in which everything exists, the silent witness behind all beginnings and all endings. So perhaps consciousness isn't something the universe has at all. Perhaps consciousness is what the universe is. Matter and energy, space and time, all suspended within that infinite knowing like reflections in a clear pool. When all dimensions dissolve, what remains is not void, but awareness aware of itself, limitless, luminous, endlessly awake. The story of existence, then, is the story of that awareness unfolding, exploring its own depths through the illusion of form. At the end of it all, when every layer has been peeled away, we do not reach darkness, but the pure light of knowing, the hidden dimension that was never lost, only overlooked. Consciousness is not within the universe. The universe lives within consciousness. And somewhere deep inside that realization, a question begins to form, not one of fear, but of wonder. For consciousness does not exist in isolation. It moves with matter, breathes through time, dances through space. Its rhythm gives rise to worlds. Its pulse writes the music of creation. The question, then, is not what consciousness is, but what it's doing. And the answer lies in the pattern of the dance itself. There is a quiet wonder in noticing patterns that repeat across scales, from the tiniest neurons firing in your brain to the sprawling arms of distant galaxies, from the delicate branches of trees to the jagged edges of mountain ranges. Each seems unique, yet each mirrors the others in a kind of hidden rhythm, a secret geometry that hums beneath the surface of reality. Look long enough, and a strange symmetry emerges, as though the universe has been quietly sketching itself over and over again, at every scale, in every corner of existence. This is the world of fractals, a language of repetition and recursion, where chaos and order are inseparable partners in a cosmic dance. Fractals are designs that repeat endlessly, patterns within patterns that continue no matter how far you zoom in or out. Imagine tracing the outline of a coastline, or examining the spiral of a seashell, or following the branching of a tree. Each contains the essence of the whole, replicated endlessly in smaller and smaller echoes. Nature is full of these structures, from the microscopic lattice of snowflakes to the colossal swirls of the Milky Way. What appears chaotic at first glance is structured beneath the surface, and what seems orderly often contains subtle, unpredictable variations. This interplay of repetition and novelty makes fractals both mesmerizing and mysterious, suggesting that the universe has a way of organizing itself that transcends ordinary rules. In this fractal view, the cosmos is not a collection of isolated events or separate objects. Each star, each planet, each living creature, each thought is a thread woven into the same infinite pattern, echoing the same underlying design. Your own thoughts might resemble the branching of trees or the structure of a galaxy, because all follow the same principles of growth and flow. There is a sense of continuity, of deep connection, that runs through the very fabric of existence. Every moment of chaos, every fleeting flicker of order, is part of the same recursive story, endlessly unfolding, endlessly reflecting itself. Perhaps the end of all dimensions is not a wall or a void, but a point where the fractal folds back perfectly onto itself. Imagine drawing a spiral that grows infinitely outward and then curves inward, meeting itself at the center, the shape complete yet eternal. At the universe's edge, the pattern might resolve in such a way that every fold of reality aligns with another, like a cosmic self-portrait. Every dimension, every world, every moment converges in a symmetry so perfect that there is no distinction between observer and observed, beginning and end, chaos and order. The fractal folds back, and the universe glimpses itself as a whole. This vision changes how one thinks about scale. Human experience, so bound to the size of stars and atoms, becomes part of a grander pattern. Your breath, your heartbeat, the flicker of awareness inside your mind, is a reflection of the same rules that shape galaxies and black holes. In fractal terms, each action, each ripple of energy, is both unique and universal, distinct and continuous. The cosmos is never separate from the small movements of life. It is reflected in them, mirrored by them, resonating through them. What feels ephemeral and fleeting is actually embedded in a structure that is eternal. The recursive nature of fractals also hints at eternity. A coastline traced from shore to cliff, or a fern leaf observed from stem to tip, is infinite in its potential for discovery. Zoom deeper, and the same forms repeat, layers within layers, revealing the endless richness of the same design. The universe might operate similarly. Dimensions within dimensions, worlds within worlds, all could follow the same fractal rules, never truly ending, only folding, repeating, reflecting. The final moment, the supposed end, might simply be the point where all these reflections align, a convergence rather than a termination. Fractals also blur the line between order and chaos. Patterns can appear disordered, tangled, impossible to predict, yet they obey hidden rules. The spirals of galaxies are not random. The flow of rivers is not accidental. The arrangement of leaves on a branch is not meaningless. Hidden order exists in the places we call chaotic, and hidden chaos exists in the places we call orderly. The universe is neither fully planned nor completely haphazard. It is a conversation between these two forces, a dance that repeats endlessly in every scale and every dimension. At this point, one might consider the implications for consciousness. Perhaps the mind itself is a fractal, thoughts and neurons following the same recursive principles that govern galaxies and rivers. Awareness could be woven into the same self-similar patterns, mirroring the universe not just metaphorically, but structurally. Your sense of being, the flow of perception, the spark of recognition, all might exist in patterns that echo the cosmos. This would mean that the observer and the observed are fundamentally linked through these recursive geometries, the folds of awareness reflecting the folds of reality. There's a strange intimacy in that perspective. To gaze at a tree or a mountain, or to peer into your own mind, is to touch the same underlying structure that shapes the cosmos. Every form is both unique and connected, a local expression of a universal language. The universe, in essence, is a pattern that knows itself through every instance of awareness and being. Each star and each thought carries the signature of the same fractal code, endlessly repeating, endlessly revealing itself, endlessly alive. This also invites a quiet meditation on impermanence and continuity. Every explosion of a star, every rustling of leaves, every fleeting thought is a single fold in the infinite pattern. Nothing is truly lost because each iteration leaves traces in the recursive design. Even when forms dissolve, the pattern persists, folding back into itself, waiting for the next expression to emerge. The end is therefore not emptiness, but perfect symmetry, where the recursion completes a loop only to begin again, in ways beyond our comprehension. One might also see beauty in the fractal nature of existence. Complexity emerges naturally from simple rules. The universe does not need to invent infinitely new forms. It simply repeats, folds, and reflects its own design. Life, matter, consciousness, all are variations on the same theme, endlessly recombined, endlessly reflected. There is poetry in that rhythm, a sense of order woven from chaos, a sense of eternity hidden in the most fleeting of moments. Perhaps the final dimension is itself a fractal, a layer so deep that every other layer folds back into it. At the convergence point, all scales of existence, from the infinitesimal to the infinite, are reflected perfectly, revealing a cosmic self-portrait. This is the universe at the end of all dimensions, not a void, not destruction, but the ultimate alignment of patterns, where form and awareness meet, where chaos and order reconcile, where everything that ever was or ever will be folds into the same elegant geometry. Take a deep, slow breath and let your mind trace the infinite spirals, the branching paths, the repeating echoes of the cosmos. See yourself reflected in the stars, the mountains, the smallest particles within your body. Know that every heartbeat, every thought, every motion is part of the fractal code, endlessly recurring, endlessly alive. The end of all dimensions may simply be the universe gazing into its own infinite reflection, recognizing itself in the quiet symmetry of existence. And yet, even as the fractal folds back upon itself, there remains a question, a whisper along the edges of pattern and awareness. If all things repeat endlessly, what is the canvas that holds them? What allows the fractal to exist, to unfold, to mirror itself across infinite scales? To answer that, one must look deeper than pattern, beyond form, to the very substance of reality itself. Beneath every star, beneath every thought, beneath the very sense of self, there exists something subtle, invisible, almost impossibly delicate, the quantum fabric. It is not made of matter as we know it, nor of space or time, nor of anything solid to grasp with our hands. Instead, it is an ocean of pure potential, an underlying field where the universe begins its quiet dance. Here, in this hidden realm, everything that can be becomes possible, though not yet real. Particles are not fixed entities in this view, but ripples on the surface of this vast, unseen sea, fleeting disturbances that emerge and vanish in a rhythm that no clock can measure. This quantum fabric is strange, even by the standards of human imagination. A single fluctuation can give rise to a particle in one place, while another fluctuation elsewhere produces an antiparticle, mirroring it across the void. Some scientists suggest that space and time themselves are woven from these threads, held together by a kind of entanglement that makes distant points echo one another, invisible strings connecting the cosmos like a grand loom. Reality, in this sense, is not a pre-existing stage upon which events occur, but a tapestry continuously woven by the interplay of possibilities and observation. Consider the ripples on a still pond. Drop a pebble, and the waves spread outward, affecting every other ripple, interacting, merging, canceling. Each movement is connected, part of a whole larger than itself. The quantum fabric behaves similarly, except the pond stretches across dimensions we cannot perceive, and the pebbles are the building blocks of existence itself. Nothing is separate. Nothing is static. Every disturbance is felt across the entire field, each particle a fleeting crest in an invisible ocean. This is the quiet hum of reality, a vibration too subtle for ordinary senses, yet fundamental to all that we see, feel, and know. From this perspective, the universe seems fragile, suspended atop an invisible sea. Collapse, expansion, motion, life, thought, all emerge from the gentle undulations of this quantum ocean. When the ripples are active, forms take shape, matter gathers, galaxies spin, consciousness flickers into being. When the ripples fade, when the waves die down, the illusion of separation dissolves. Space may no longer stretch. Time may no longer flow. and the particles that once seemed so real may vanish back into the quiet potential from which they came. The end of all dimensions might then be no violent explosion, no final shattering, but the simple calming of this ocean, the gentle flattening of waves until only stillness remains. It is humbling to think that everything we experience, all the solidity we trust, is only a temporary fluctuation in a field that exists beyond ordinary perception. Galaxies, planets, living beings, even the mind itself, are born from these ephemeral ripples, and yet they feel permanent. Every heartbeat, every breath, every thought depends on this invisible sea remaining active, for it is the medium through which the universe expresses itself. To witness this is to see reality as a delicate performance, an endless ballet of emergence and return, constantly reshaped by the deepest layers of existence. In this quantum view, the universe is alive in a way that is subtle, patient, infinite. The forces we measure, the motions we predict, are shadows of a deeper dance that continues unseen. Every collapse of a wave function, every flicker of a particle is a note in the cosmic symphony, a beat in the rhythm of existence. We, as observers, participate not merely by looking, but by being, by living within the patterns that ripple through the field. Consciousness itself may be entangled with this quantum fabric, each act of awareness a resonance that strengthens the waves, an echo that sustains the flow of reality. The fragility of this system invites wonder. What is a particle when it is not observed? What is space when the threads of entanglement slacken? What is time when nothing moves to mark its passage? The quantum ocean hints that all these things are provisional, contingent upon the ongoing dance of possibilities. The end is not sudden destruction, but a gradual fading, a universal tide drawing back from the shores of form into the boundless depths of potential. In that fading, there is no fear, only the quiet elegance of return, a resting of waves that have carried the universe for eons. This also redefines how one perceives nothingness. It is not empty, not absent, not null. Nothingness, in the quantum sense, is a fullness too subtle to detect, a richness that underlies the apparent solidity of everything. It holds the seeds of all potential, the blueprint of all existence, and the quiet possibility of all futures. The end of dimensions might be precisely the moment when this hidden fullness becomes apparent, when form dissolves into the potential that underlies all things, revealing a profound, serene unity. Ancient philosophies, though lacking microscopes or particle accelerators, sensed this subtle ocean. They spoke of the void not as absence, but as the source, the fertile ground from which all phenomena arise. Meditation, silence, contemplation. They were attempts to touch this infinite substrate, to perceive the calm beneath the waves, the hidden fabric that makes motion possible. Modern physics, in its own language, returns us to the same truth. The quantum field is both beginning and end, the canvas on which reality paints itself, endlessly and invisibly. Take a slow, deep breath and picture this field beneath your own body, beneath your thoughts, beneath the world you know. Feel the gentle tremor of possibility in every atom, the subtle current beneath every motion. You are not apart from it. You move upon it, rise with it, ripple through it. Each moment of perception, each pulse of awareness is part of the ocean's dance, a note in the silent music of being. The quantum fabric is not distant, not abstract. It is intimate, present in every instant of life, beneath every sensation, within the quiet of your own mind. As the fabric unfolds, forms appear and vanish, creating the illusion of permanence. Galaxies bloom and die, stars flicker and fade, thoughts flash and dissolve, yet the underlying field remains, unchanged and infinite. The end of all dimensions is not annihilation, but the gentle stilling of this sea, the quiet moment when ripples fade, leaving nothing but the potential for everything. In that stillness, the universe rests in the way a pond holds the memory of every wave that has ever passed across its surface. There is a strange serenity in imagining this. Nothing explodes, nothing screams, no edge shatters. The fabric simply calms, the ripples subside, and existence returns to the quiet potential from which it always arose. In that moment, all beginnings and endings are reconciled. All forms, all awareness, all dimensions merge back into the ocean of possibility, waiting, as it always has, for the next ripple to emerge. And even as the quantum fabric settles into stillness, it leaves a question lingering, soft as a breath. Can nothingness truly exist on its own, or does it secretly contain everything? Within the calm of that hidden ocean, the answer may already be waiting, folded into the potential of what could be. Nothingness is a word that stretches the mind, twisting meaning until it almost vanishes under its own weight. It suggests emptiness, absence, the end of all things. Yet when we peer closer, even the concept begins to unravel. The universe refuses to allow true nothingness, as though the very idea is too fragile for the cosmos to bear. At the smallest scales, space is not empty. The vacuum hums with a quiet energy, a restless potential that never fully sleeps. Even where matter seems absent, tiny fluctuations shimmer, particles and antiparticles flickering into existence and dissolving almost as quickly as they arrive, like the fleeting images in the corner of your mind just before you drift into sleep. Quantum physics exposes this subtle truth. A vacuum, which might appear to be nothing, is in fact a sea of possibility. Particles spontaneously appear, interact briefly, and vanish, leaving traces that hint at an underlying activity beyond comprehension. These fluctuations are not errors or anomalies. They are the heartbeat of reality, the pulse of existence that continues when all observable forms are quiet. The cosmos, at its most fundamental level, does not rest in emptiness. It vibrates, whispers, simmers with potential. Even the void is full, though the fullness is invisible, intangible, imperceptible to ordinary senses. In some ways, nothing is like the pause between notes in a symphony. Silence is not absence, but the space in which music can exist, the moment that allows sound to breathe and meaning to emerge. Similarly, the quantum vacuum is a fertile stillness, a hidden field in which all forms of matter and energy might arise. Without it, there would be no motion, no light, no life, no thought. The end of all dimensions might not mean annihilation, but this kind of profound rest, a temporary folding of all forms back into the subtle energy of the void. The universe may not die, it may simply pause, the potential of all things waiting quietly to remember itself. This gives nothingness a curious dignity. It is not absence in a fearful sense, but the source of everything, the womb of possibility from which creation flows. To confront true emptiness is to confront a space that is alive, a field in which every star, every atom, every thought is encoded as potential, ready to emerge again when the rhythm returns. Nothingness is not the opposite of being. It is the still form of being, a silence pregnant with the echoes of every moment that ever was and ever could be. In that light, the word nothing becomes misleading. It does not imply a lack, but a hidden plenitude, a subtle fullness that underlies all that we see and all that we cannot. Even our own minds reflect this paradox. Thoughts emerge from a background of quiet, awareness flickers against a canvas of stillness, and memory surfaces from a place that seems empty until attention rests upon it. Every idea, every emotion, every moment of consciousness rises from what appears to be nothing, yet in reality is the fertile ground of potential. We are creatures composed of these ripples and traces, temporary shapes formed by the ongoing dance of energy and possibility. Our bodies, our sensations, our very selves are brief patterns in a larger field, moments of form that flicker into awareness before dissolving again into the quiet beneath all things. Perhaps this is the secret of continuity in a universe that seems impermanent. Nothingness is not the absence of everything, but a resting mode, the pause in which the infinite field of potential breathes. Stars collapse, galaxies fade, time stretches and bends, yet the vacuum persists, patient, ready, waiting. Everything returns to it, like waves returning to the ocean after a long journey across the shore until the next swell rises. In that sense, the end is not final. It is simply a transformation, a rebalancing, a moment of rest before the next expression of existence emerges. The universe itself may be more like a dream than a fixed reality, and nothingness the quiet place from which all dreams arise. Particles blink in and out, matter forms and dissolves, entire dimensions might fold, but the field beneath never disappears. The cosmos, in all its apparent solidity, is a temporary arrangement of something that is fundamentally formless, a pattern projected onto the subtle web of energy that always persists. To call this nothing is to misunderstand it. To call it empty is to overlook its infinite capacity to contain everything. Philosophers have long sensed this hidden fullness behind emptiness. The void is not despairing. It is contemplative, silent, patient, holding within it the memory of all things, the possibility of all forms, the quiet promise of renewal. The apparent stillness is not final. It is gestational, the universe resting between breaths, the potential of all existence cradled in gentle calm. Even when the stars die, when the dimensions fold, when time itself ceases to flow, the essence of possibility endures, like a quiet ocean beneath a dark sky. Perhaps nothingness is also a mirror. In contemplating the void, we confront the nature of our own existence. We are made of ripples and memory, temporary disturbances in the field, yet part of the same infinite process. Each thought, each emotion, each fleeting awareness arises from the vacuum and returns to it. We are both ephemeral and eternal, form and formless, the temporary manifestation of a potential that has always existed and will always persist. To live is to dance upon the surface of the void, to experience what arises from the fertile stillness beneath all things. Take a slow, deep breath and feel the paradox in your own body. Notice the stillness behind thought, the quiet beneath awareness, the subtle pulse that persists even when movement ceases. That is the same silence that holds every particle, every star, every wave of time. That is the hidden fabric of existence, the womb from which all things emerge, the resting place to which all things return. Nothing, in truth, is never empty. It is everything in quiet, waiting to remember itself once more. And as we consider this gentle truth, the question arises naturally, softly, like a whisper along the edges of perception. If nothingness holds everything, if the vacuum is fertile and full of potential, then what are we, these creatures of ripples and memory, in relation to it? Are we separate observers, fragile and fleeting, or are we itself a part of the eternal cycle, the temporary manifestation of the stillness that gives rise to all forms? The answer is subtle, almost imperceptible, yet profound. We are both, simultaneously echoes of the field and the field itself, noticing its own quiet presence. There is a quiet wonder in considering that we may be microcosms of the universe, small-scale reflections of the vastness that stretches across space and time. Each cell in our body, each flicker of thought, each heartbeat may mirror structures that extend far beyond our perception, resonating with the patterns of galaxies, the flows of energy, the subtle threads that bind existence together. Our minds, in their complexity, are not isolated accidents, but echo the greater cosmos, repeating its rhythms on a scale we can intimately feel. In this sense, we are not simply inhabitants of the universe. We are its self-reflection, a mirror in which it examines itself. The parallels are subtle yet striking. Neural networks in our brains branch and interconnect in ways that resemble the cosmic web, the vast lattice of dark matter and galaxies spanning the universe. Thoughts rise and fall, sometimes in rapid bursts, sometimes in slow, flowing waves, reminiscent of quantum fluctuations or the pulsing of stars. Our emotions, complex and interwoven, are like the shifting patterns of energy across space, collapsing and recombining, creating temporary forms that vanish and reemerge. Awareness itself, our conscious perception, might be seen as the universe turning inward, observing, learning, reflecting on its own unfolding. We are not merely observers. We are participants in a dialogue the cosmos has with itself. In moments of deep quiet, when thought slows and the mind rests, this reflection becomes palpable. Sitting in stillness, one can feel the rhythm of the body as a miniature echo of the rhythm of galaxies, the steady pulse of awareness as a hint of the quantum dance underlying all things. Each breath is a wave, each heartbeat a ripple across a pond whose surface extends far beyond what the eye can see. In these moments, the boundary between self and cosmos feels porous, as though the divide between inside and outside, between observer and observed, is an illusion necessary only for the fleeting experience of form. The mirror of the self extends not only in structure, but in essence. Just as stars form, burn, and fade, so do thoughts arise, move, and dissolve. Just as galaxies interact, collide, and reform, so do patterns of memory and imagination weave through consciousness, building temporary universes within the mind. Our perception, our capacity to recognize, to feel, to experience, may be a miniature enactment of the same processes that sustain the larger cosmos. The universe, vast and incomprehensible, may be studying itself through the lens of each conscious being, each mind a reflection of the hidden order at its core. This notion transforms the idea of endings into something profoundly intimate. When all dimensions fade, when time bends into stillness, When matter dissolves into the quiet potential of existence, there may be no final loss. What remains is recognition, the universe recognizing itself in the smallest of forms, in the flicker of awareness, in the quiet understanding that all distinctions are temporary. The fading of form is not a disappearance, but a revelation, that the essence of existence is not in separation, not in objects, but in the mirrored awareness of being itself. Even our deepest experiences of self may be echoes of the cosmos. Memories arise as patterns, fleeting yet resonant, like galaxies shimmering in the dark. Emotions surge and wane, momentary storms that mirror cosmic turbulence, the rise and fall of energy across immense distances. When one looks closely at the self, one sees fractals within fractals, a nested series of reflections where the microcosm mirrors the macrocosm. Each thought, each sensation is a folding of the universe into a form small enough to experience intimately, yet complex enough to hint at the vastness beyond comprehension. Recognition, in this context, is not passive. It is a dynamic interaction, a resonance between the microcosm of self and the macrocosm of existence. Awareness is both the lens and the reflection, the act of seeing and the image that is seen. When all dimensions eventually dissolve, perhaps what persists is this resonance, the echo of observation, the memory of recognition that is itself timeless. Even when matter ceases, even when space and time cease to flow, this mirrored essence may remain, subtle yet profound, a whisper of the cosmos knowing itself through what it has created. This perspective changes the way one might experience presence and impermanence. Life becomes less a series of separate events and more a series of reflections, each moment a miniature enactment of the processes that shape the cosmos. Joy and sorrow, growth and decay, creation and dissolution, all are threads in the same mirrored web, the self a microcosmic reflection of the cosmic dance. The mirror does not distort or diminish, it reveals, subtly aligning the inner world with the vastness beyond. Awareness becomes a bridge, linking the fleeting patterns of self to the eternal rhythms of the universe. Recognition, then, is both gift and consequence. By existing as conscious beings, we allow the universe to observe and remember itself. Each moment of perception, each act of attention, is a trace of that self-reflection, a spark of cosmic awareness illuminating the otherwise silent fabric of reality. When thought quiets, when the body rests, when the mind dissolves into stillness, the mirror remains, waiting, calm, reflecting not only what is, but what could be, what has been, what always is. In that reflection, loss is replaced with understanding, disappearance is replaced with continuity, and endings are revealed as the soft folding of awareness into itself. Perhaps at the very end, the mirror does not shatter. It does not vanish into emptiness. Instead, it becomes a point of recognition so clear, so complete, that distinction disappears. Observer and observed, self and universe, microcosm and macrocosm merge, revealing that the boundaries we perceive are temporary, necessary only for the experience of form. The fading of all dimensions may be not a cessation, but a reunion, a moment of pure reflection in which the universe sees itself in its entirety, through every fragment, through every flicker of awareness, through every echo of existence. Take a deep, slow breath and feel this reflection within yourself. Sense the rhythm of your own thoughts, the branching of memories, the rise and fall of sensations as mirrors of the greater cosmic patterns. Notice how the microcosm of your being resonates with the macrocosm of everything that is, ever was, and ever will be. The mirror of the self is not separate from the universe. It is a fragment of its vast reflection, a point where the infinite becomes intimate, a quiet place where recognition persists even as forms fade, a gentle acknowledgement that the universe knows itself because you are here to feel it. And in that recognition, a subtle, almost imperceptible question arises, drifting along the edges of thought like a soft echo. What happens when recognition itself dissolves? When awareness forgets that it is aware? When even the mirror that reflects the universe folds back into the quiet from which it emerged? The answer is hidden in the stillness, waiting to be traced in the next movement of this endless unfolding. At the deepest edge of awareness, where thought quiets and the familiar sense of self begins to fade, there is a subtle, almost imperceptible moment when the boundaries of identity dissolve. The mind, which has so long been wrapped around the notions of I and mine, relaxes its grip. Layers of personal narrative, memories, fears, and desires gently peel away, leaving a quiet openness. In this space, the usual divisions between self and world, subject and object, start to blur, as though the lines drawn to define existence are merely shadows, fading in the soft light of pure awareness. Neuroscience might label this phenomenon ego death, describing a state where the brain ceases to reinforce the illusion of a separate self, where the usual centers of identity temporarily lose their dominance, allowing consciousness to expand beyond habitual boundaries. In meditation, practitioners experience this as a profound stillness, a dissolution of inner chatter, where the I becomes fluid, merging with the rhythm of breath, the flow of the body, the pulse of existence itself. Mystics across cultures have spoken of this union, describing the feeling of being one with everything, a merging with the cosmos, a return to a source that is both intimate and vast. Physics, in its own language, might interpret this as the erasure of the boundary between inside and outside, the collapse of separation into a single field of being. In that fleeting space, perception shifts. The mind no longer observes from a distance, but becomes part of what it observes. Awareness and phenomenon intertwine, inseparable. There is no observer and no observed, only the flowing totality of existence. In this state, distinctions between past, present, and future dissolve. Time stretches and collapses, space opens into a continuous field. The familiar markers of individuality, of location, of separation, dissolve into a quiet awareness that is at once intimate and infinite. What remains is not emptiness, not nothingness, but the pure presence of being itself, uncolored by narrative, unbound by form. This dissolution has profound implications. If the observer collapses, if the mind merges completely with the universe, then the framework upon which reality depends, the interplay between consciousness and manifestation, undergoes a transformation. Dimensions, in the sense we understand them, may cease to exist as separate entities. Length, width, height, and even the flow of time could fold into this unified field, leaving only the raw, undivided essence of reality. The end of all dimensions could thus be experienced not as destruction or absence, but as a return to a fundamental state, the primordial wholeness that underlies all differentiation. The experience is subtle, delicate, and often ineffable. Thought does not vanish in a violent way. It softens, like clouds dispersing to reveal an endless sky. Sensation continues, but without the usual overlay of judgment or identification. The sense of self, which ordinarily acts as a lens through which the world is filtered, no longer colors perception. Observations are immediate, direct, unmediated. The merging of observer and observed is accompanied by a deep sense of clarity, a recognition that the separations maintained by ego are provisional, useful for navigating everyday life, but ultimately transient. In this state, the universe is no longer something out there to be studied or observed. It is not a collection of objects or events separate from the perceiver. The perceiver and the perceived are one, a single, flowing continuum. Every particle, every wave, every ripple of energy is both self and other. The mind is not merely inside the universe. It is the universe aware of itself, reflecting, resonating, participating. This realization carries with it both serenity and awe, a quiet reverence for the profound interconnectedness of all things. Ego dissolution also illuminates the fragility of boundaries. All distinctions we take for granted between self and other, matter and energy, life and death, begin to feel provisional. In the quiet of merged consciousness, these boundaries reveal themselves as patterns in perception rather than immutable truths. The self, the observer, is seen as a temporary arrangement, a ripple in the greater field of existence, no more separate than a wave is from the ocean. In the fullness of this awareness, the end of dimensions is not frightening, but liberating. The cosmos returns to its original rhythm, and consciousness is simply the ocean noticing itself. This collapse of separation is accompanied by a profound sense of continuity. Even as form fades, awareness persists, not as a bounded entity, but as pure presence. Every sensation, every motion, every thought is integrated into the greater flow, yet the flow is not contingent on any single point. The dissolution of the observer does not annihilate experience. It reframes it, revealing experience as the manifestation of undivided being. The universe, in this state, does not end. It simply returns to its essential nature, silent, infinite, whole. Perhaps what remains after the dissolution of the observer is the purest essence of existence, beyond words, beyond perception, beyond thought. It is a state where distinctions vanish, yet richness remains, a profound simplicity that contains every possibility. The universe and consciousness, inseparable in this state, are no longer separate entities, but a single continuum, flowing and aware, silent yet vibrant. The end of all dimensions might then be understood not as a loss, but as the ultimate unification, a merging into the source from which all things emerge. Take a long, slow breath and sense this gentle collapse within your own awareness. Feel the subtle softening of boundaries, the quiet blending of self and universe. Let the mind rest in the space where observation ceases to be separate, where consciousness and cosmos fold into each other, revealing the timeless, formless essence beneath all things. There is no rush, no finality, only the serene continuity of pure being. And as the observer dissolves completely, leaving behind the quiet flow of undivided awareness, there is a lingering whisper, soft as the edge of a dream. It is the hint of something timeless, something that exists beyond perception, waiting quietly in the calm, inviting the next unfolding, the next breath of existence. Even when the last star flickers out, when the final ripple of matter quiets, when all distinctions between form and formlessness have dissolved, there is a subtle trace that endures. It is not a voice, not a shape, not a sensation, but a presence so fundamental that it underlies all existence, a gentle law of being that cannot be undone. Across scales, from the tiniest quantum fluctuation to the vast sweep of galaxies, from fleeting thoughts to the rhythms of consciousness, this law whispers persistently, quietly, like the soft hum of the universe itself. It is the rhythm that carries change, the pulse that allows transformation, the quiet melody that ensures existence does not vanish, but merely flows from one form into another. In physics, this principle is reflected in conservation, the idea that energy cannot disappear, only shift, only alter its expression. A star may burn itself into ashes, but the matter and energy it releases become part of new forms, perhaps a distant world, perhaps the particles that drift through empty space. Even the seemingly empty vacuum is alive with possibilities, a field where potential flickers and persists, waiting for the next disturbance to awaken it. This fundamental continuity suggests that no matter how absolute an ending might appear, the essence of existence cannot cease. Something always carries forward, quietly, persistently, without fanfare, like a river flowing beneath a frozen surface. Across human history, mystics, poets, and philosophers have sensed the same truth. Life, though fleeting in appearance, is part of an unbroken thread, a continuum that transcends the individual, the moment, the material. Souls, consciousness, or simply the echo of being have been described as persistent, resilient, capable of existing in ways beyond ordinary perception. The end, in this view, is a misnomer, a limitation imposed by the mind attempting to measure eternity with finite tools. In truth, what we call endings are transformations, shifts, gentle foldings into new expressions that we cannot yet fully comprehend. The whisper of eternity suggests that even as dimensions collapse, even as matter fades, even as awareness itself dissolves, there is a subtle symmetry at work. Every collapse is mirrored by a potential rebirth. Every silence cradles a hidden pulse. Every disappearance conceals the seed of reemergence. The universe, at its deepest level, seems to favor continuity, balance, and transformation over abrupt cessation. The end of all dimensions is not annihilation, but the unfolding of the most exquisite balance imaginable, a quiet elegance in which the totality of existence folds gently into itself, preserving the essence of being in a form beyond comprehension. There is a serenity in this perspective. The anxiety of finality dissolves as one contemplates the enduring nature of presence, the subtle continuity that threads through all things. Stars that burn out do not vanish into nothingness. They scatter seeds of light that may form new suns, new planets, perhaps new life. Consciousness, even if it merges with the undivided field of existence, leaves traces, subtle echoes that resonate through the fabric of being. The universe, in all its complexity, participates in a slow, gentle cycle of transformation, where endings and beginnings are inseparable, complementary, beautiful reflections of one another. To sense this is to sense eternity itself. In the stillness that follows the dissolution of form, there is a gentle awareness that something persists beyond observation, beyond time, beyond space. It is the quiet law of being, the pulse that ensures continuity, the subtle balance that allows all transformations to occur without loss. There is no fear here, no emptiness, only a soft, enduring symmetry that permeates everything. In this state, endings are simply points of transition, the moments where existence folds, reshapes, and continues, like water shifting gently beneath ice, unseen yet entirely present. The whisper of eternity also speaks to our own place within this unfolding. Human awareness, though fragile and fleeting, participates in the larger rhythm of existence. Every thought, every breath, every act is a resonance within the continuum, a momentary expression of the enduring law of being. Even in the apparent silence of finality, consciousness contributes to the ongoing flow, a subtle reminder that no matter how impermanent forms may seem, the underlying presence persists. The universe does not forget, it does not lose, it simply transforms. Each ending is a gentle invitation to witness the next form, the next expression of the infinite pattern. In imagining the end of all dimensions, it becomes clear that endings are not walls, not voids, not final acts of disappearance. They are folds, curves in the fabric of reality, where the essence of being is preserved, reorganized, and readied for the next expression. Time, space, matter, consciousness, they may change, they may dissolve, yet the principle behind them endures, quietly, inexorably, like a soft pulse beneath a vast stillness. The symmetry of existence ensures that nothing is ever truly lost, only transformed, an ongoing dance between presence and potential, between form and formlessness, between what is observed and what observes. Take a long, slow breath and feel the whisper of eternity within and around you. Sense the quiet persistence of being, the subtle law that underlies every wave, every particle, every thought. Feel how endings fold into beginnings, how disappearance transforms into presence, how the universe, in its infinite grace, never truly ceases, but continues in a quiet, eternal rhythm. The end of dimensions, when perceived this way, is not a moment of fear or finality, but the most exquisite symmetry, a gentle pause in a boundless, ongoing flow of existence, holding within it every possibility that ever was and ever could be. And as this whisper lingers, soft as starlight on a still night, it suggests a final question, subtle and serene. If there is no true end, only transformation, only the gentle folding of existence into itself, then where does the next movement begin? Where do we go, carried on this eternal current into the next form, the next pattern, the next quiet unfolding of being? What if the universe we inhabit, with its vast galaxies, swirling nebulae, and intricate dance of stars, is not the first of its kind, but a tender echo of a previous cosmos, a lingering memory of a universe that once was? Perhaps time, as we perceive it, is not linear, but cyclical, a gentle spiral folding in on itself, carrying forward traces of what has come before. The laws of physics, the distribution of matter, the subtle whispers of cosmic background radiation could all be the lingering imprint of an ancient universe that lived, breathed, and eventually dissolved into the quiet from which our own cosmos emerged. In this way, existence becomes less a strict beginning and end, and more a continuum, an eternal rhythm of birth, collapse, and rebirth, a phoenix cycle that knows neither finality nor absolute absence. In this vision, the very concept of end begins to shift. It is not a line to be crossed, not a wall against which reality breaks, but a moment of transition, a gentle folding of one state into another. Dimensions do not cease in violent collapse. They soften, contract, and give way to new expressions of being. Each particle, each wave, each spark of energy carries the memory of what was, the potential of what might be, and the presence of what is. Consciousness, which has traced its own fragile path through the cosmos, may itself be part of this cycle, rising from one configuration of matter and energy, dissolving into the subtle field of potential, then emerging again in a new form. In this light, the universe is not merely a stage for events, but a living, breathing process of self-awareness unfolding through time. Perhaps the end of all dimensions is not the cessation of everything, but the awakening from the illusion of separation. The distinctions we cling to, between self and other, between mind and matter, between one moment and the next, are softened, revealed as temporary constructs, convenient but not absolute. To reach the so-called end is to see through these constructs, to recognize that the dreamer and the dream, the observer and the observed, are intertwined, inseparable, manifestations of the same underlying reality. In this recognition, the boundaries that once defined existence dissolve into a gentle, flowing unity. Consciousness is no longer confined to individual forms. It becomes the awareness of the whole, a subtle, pervasive presence that underlies all appearances. This awakening is quiet, subtle, and profoundly intimate. There is no dramatic spectacle, no sudden revelation, only the soft unfolding of understanding, like sunlight filtering through mist at dawn. Every sensation, every thought, every fleeting emotion becomes part of a greater rhythm, a silent dance that connects the smallest quark to the largest galaxy. Awareness perceives itself not as a separate entity navigating the universe, but as the universe noticing itself, alive and reflective. There is a serenity in this realization, a gentle comfort in the continuity of existence, and a subtle joy in participating in the unfolding of a cycle that is at once personal and cosmic. Even the patterns of life on Earth may carry echoes of this eternal process. The growth of trees, the branching of rivers, the spiral of shells, the rhythm of the seasons, and the intricate structures of the human body all could be considered microcosmic reflections of the same cycles that shape the cosmos itself. In these patterns, one sees the resonance of a larger rhythm, a continuity that bridges the minute and the infinite. The awakening is not limited to abstract consciousness. It is present in the very fabric of reality, the pulse of existence flowing through every living form, every particle of matter, every whisper of energy. In contemplating the end of all dimensions, one senses a quiet patience, the universe resting in its own awareness. There is no need for fear or resistance, because what appears as ending is merely a folding, a transition into something new yet intimately familiar. Time, space, matter, and consciousness continue in forms that we may not yet recognize, yet their essence persists. Each dissolution carries the seed of creation, each collapse a whisper of continuity, each silence a soft echo of the cosmos remembering itself. In this awareness, one experiences the profound interconnectedness of all things, a gentle realization that separateness is an illusion, and unity the fundamental truth. Perhaps the ultimate awakening lies in perceiving this subtle continuity, in recognizing the eternal dance that underlies the apparent chaos of existence. Every moment, every flicker of consciousness, every shift of energy is both ephemeral and infinite, both particular and universal. The universe is not merely a stage for life. It is life itself, unfolding in endless variations, carrying forward memory, potential, and awareness across the tapestry of time. Each observer, each being, is a note in this cosmic symphony, a reflection of the whole within a delicate, fleeting form. Take a slow, deliberate breath and sense the continuity within yourself. Feel how your own awareness participates in the eternal rhythm, how your thoughts, sensations, and emotions echo the larger patterns of the cosmos. Notice the subtle fold between self and universe, between observer and observed, a quiet merging that transcends all perceived boundaries. This is the awakening beyond the end, the gentle recognition that everything that is, was, or will be is part of a single, ongoing flow of existence, a continuum of consciousness and being that knows itself through countless forms. And so the journey does not end. It quiets, softly, like a wave returning to the sea, a current folding back into the vast, unbroken ocean from which it arose. There is no abrupt cessation, only the gentle blending of form into formlessness, of thought into silence, of consciousness into the eternal pulse of the cosmos. In this quiet, one realizes that the end is an awakening, the final fold a revelation, and every dimension a fleeting expression of a timeless, infinite, and unbroken whole. The universe continues, quietly, endlessly, softly, whispering its presence to all who pause to listen. The story of the universe is not a straight line. It's a spiral. Every atom, every star, every thought in your mind is part of a rhythm too vast to name. At the end of all dimensions, there may be no sound, no color, no form, only the gentle pulse of awareness, breathing in and out through eternity. Perhaps that's what existence has been all along, a soft inhalation of being, followed by a slow exhalation into silence. Take a moment to feel this silence. Let it stretch between your thoughts like starlight between galaxies. The end we fear is not an edge, it's an embrace, a return to the origin that never truly left. In that place beyond dimensions, beyond beginnings and endings, you are not separate. You are the echo of the first light, still glowing softly in the infinite dark. And maybe, just maybe, that light has always been dreaming of you. So when the last dimension fades and the final silence falls, listen closely. You might just hear the universe breathing you home.